We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Hey guys. Part 4 of this is what if Naruto woke up in a different Konoha. The day after a wild party to celebrate the end of the war against Madara, Naruto, the remaining Konoha 12, and some guests, can't help but wonder what happened last night as they wake up in a different Konoha. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 10, Naruto felt violated. Actually, he'd felt violated during the entire process of what he'd been put through. And for a long time after that. Even now, he still felt violated. But at least he wasn't in danger of wetting himself anymore. That was a relief. The fact that he felt some relief because of what he'd had to endure made him feel even more violated. He was distracted from his violated train of thought when he heard the hiss of the sealed door. Naruto looked up as his cell's door slowly opened, both dreading and hoping to see his father again, but was disappointed and relieved to see someone else instead. 5 shinobi, all with various shades of blonde hair, were entering the room, their expressions grim. "Hey, what happened? Did somebody die?" he asked. He hadn't seen such long faces since the old man's death. Or Erosenin's. Now that he was thinking about it, if he was in the past, and his parents and Jiraiya were alive, wouldn't that mean that the old man was too? No, a familiar-looking man said sharply. Where had he seen him before? "Hey, I know you!" Naruto exclaimed. "You're Ino's dad." The man blinked in confusion. One of the other shinobi smirked, only to receive a cold glare from the man. "I'm afraid you're wrong. I don't have a son named Ino." "Of course not. Ino's a girl, silly." This time, the smirking shinobi almost let out a full laugh, only to be reprimanded again by a frown that could have frozen hell's flames. "We're not here to listen to your nonsense." Ino's dad, what was his name, said. At his signal, Naruto's 5 guests placed themselves around him, surrounding the bed he was strapped to. What are you guys gonna do?" he asked, becoming a little uneasy since he was surrounded and in a powerless state. "We're going to use a rarely practiced and strictly guarded Yamanaka clan kenjutsu. It allows 5 of our clan to enter the subject's mind and have them submit to us all their secrets, or slowly destroy their mind, one piece at a time." "Oh, alright," Naruto said, before registering the entirety of the other blonde's statement. "No wait, you mean that you're going to use it on me?" "That's the idea, yes." "Oh no," the younger blonde said, shaking his head nervously. No. It's not something you can refuse, prisoner." "No." Naruto yelled. "You don't understand. He's sleeping now, but I don't know what will happen if." "Enough talking," Inoichi, oh, that was his name, said, turning towards his team. "Prepare yourselves. We must do it at the same time. Listen to me, damn. Yamanaka special no jutsu." 5 voices said in unison. Naruto, feeling like 5 glowing hot rods were rammed through his skull, passed out. In her coffee-induced state, Kushina didn't realize that she had almost run over poor Kakashi as she left the closet. In her haste to exit the building, she ignored the other confused teens completely, the book of pictures clutched tightly in her arms. She didn't use the stairs. Instead, she just leapt through the giant hole in the wall. Once she landed on the roof of the next building over, she kept moving towards the Hokage Tower without stopping to look at Minato's office's windows. She proceeded in a straight line, not even stopping to so much as register anything that had the misfortune of being in her way. Not the civilians she'd plowed through, not the occasional shinobi on patrol that tried to stop her and ask what was going on, not the cabbage stand she just destroyed, street or roof, it didn't matter, so long as it would get her there the fastest. Because she needed to speak to Minato, and she needed to do it now. "Minato. The world doesn't make sense anymore. Fix it." Even if she was oblivious to what was happening around her, her mind was going into overdrive, burning the last reserves of sugar and caffeine she had consumed in the past few hours. Seal. Building. Closet. Book. Picture. Seal. Photo. Minato. Me pregnant. Seal. Attack. Intruders. Seal. Mini Minato. Pregnant. Minato. Seal. Minato. Mini Minato. Seal. Pregnant. Seal. Building. Attack. Intruders. Surrender. Mini Minato. Seal. Not space. Not space. Having reached that epiphany mid-leap, Kushina hastened her mad race towards the Hokage Tower. To everyone outside of the Yamanaka clan, the mind was just a nebulous term used to describe the mushy gray thing between people's ears. And most people didn't use it anyway. But for a Yamanaka with the ability to superficially feel or even enter one, the human mind was a complex, magnificent and real place. Every mind was different, and as such, how they appeared to each individual Yamanaka was different. To Inoichi, the prisoner's mind took on the appearance of a slightly messy, freshly refurnished room. The walls had a few barely noticeable cracks, and parts of them had been repaired slightly, and covered with orange paint. Some portion of those walls were not completely painted yet, and the cracks were more noticeable. Signs of bad memories and experiences which were slowly healing. Looking around, the Yamanaka could see other clues about the prisoner's psyche. The furniture was mostly covered by cardboard boxes, like if someone had just moved in, which meant a period of transition that was influencing the boy's life. But the newer, pristine boxes were concealing other boxes, old and battered things, full of ruined paper and scrolls. "Are you seeing this, too?" he asked, turning to his clansmen. Of course, they were not seeing the same thing, because everyone perceived a mind in a different way. But the major things, the telltale signs of the personality and of the state of the psyche, remained. The other four Yamanaka nodded, examining the big room. Each of them clasped a chain that led to the restraints binding the sixth occupant of the room, who was now almost an open book to them. Difficult childhood, Shuro, the youngest among his clansmen said. Various emotional scars, but he's getting better, and creating newer, more positive memories. This is even more humiliating than the bedpan, the prisoner said. If you wanted to know something, you could have asked, you know. If you really wanted to give us answers, you should have given them to the Hokage, Inoichi said, not looking at the prisoner. The Yamanaka signaled to his clansmen to proceed, and all four of them started to rummage through the boxes representing the prisoner's memory, causing him to protest. "Hey! Stop that. Let's start simple. What is your name?" Inoichi asked, turning to face their captive. "Oh, man, I can't tell you, because if they find out, what is your name?" Inoichi repeated, hardening his tone and strengthening his grip on the chain. Even if he hadn't been able to feel the jutsu power in his hands, he would have still been able to see it on the prisoner's face. The blond boy gritted his teeth, suppressing a pained yelp, while his body shuddered. Some of the boxes around the room expelled a few paper sheet, that landed far away on the dusty ground. It was enough. Inoichi loosened his grip around the chain. Once it was over, the younger blonde looked around, shock evident on his face, mouth agape. "What the hell was that?" he asked, looking directly in Inoichi's eyes. "That was me, using the control this jutsu allows us to exercise on your mind," Inoichi said, maintaining a neutral expression. "It was a light push, too. Should you refuse to answer my questions, I'll push harder." Inoichi remained silent for a while, letting that information sink in. "Inoichi-san." One of his clansmen called. "I found something, but, what is it?" "Anything useful?" "Sir, this box is full of ramen recipes." "Nothing else." "Hey! Hands off. Those are my ramen recipes." The prisoner protested. "Keep searching, maybe it's some kind of code," Inoichi ordered, ignoring the younger blonde's loud protests. "Now, let's start again. What is your name?" "Arashir Kazama." The self-proclaimed Barashir yelled, a little too quickly. Inoichi gave another light push, gripping his end of the chain. This time, the prisoner yelled because of the pain. More sheets exploded out of their boxes, fluttering to the floor. "Hey! I answered your question. With a lie." It was so obvious that even a barely trained genin would have seen through it. "How can you? That is my name, UASS. "No, it's not," Inoichi interrupted the futile outburst. "I'm a high officer of the TI department. I've personally interrogated hundreds of subjects, inside and outside of their minds. I can tell when someone is lying." "I told you," the prisoner said, after having calmed himself, "my name is Arashir." Inoichi pushed harder this time. The prisoner fell on his knees, gritting his teeth. The ramen recipes box exploded in the face of Yamanaka that was examining it. Enough of this, he said. We are in control, here. You can't lie to me. Are you going to make this harder than it has to be? Instead of answering, the blonde prisoner just turned away, avoiding eye contact. Inoichi-san, one of his clansmen called. He's been in Konoha before. A lot of his memories are associated with the village, too much for being just what he saw during the attack or from intelligence reports. Start to delve into them, find what you can, he replied, before looking at the prisoner again. One more time, and this time, tell me the truth. What is your name? Erasure. Kaza. This time, Inoichi made the prisoner scream. An entire pile of boxes collapsed, papers and scrolls littering the floor. He didn't like to treat a mind like this, not even a little. But for Konoha's safety, he would, and he had already done even more brutal things. I should warn you, Inoichi said calmly without stopping to look at the prisoner, that we don't actually need you to get what we want. And that if a mind is damaged too much by the use of this jutsu, the results can be permanent. The prisoner tensed after hearing that part, which was only to be expected. Nobody wished to have their mind destroyed. Inoichi hoped he didn't have to go that far. Especially to learn something as mundane as the prisoner's name. The blonde teen looked down, visibly frustrated. Inoichi didn't say anything, but made a motion with the chain, silently asking for an answer. Naruto, the prisoner finally mumbled. Naruto who? Inoichi questioned, arching an eyebrow. He was sure that the captive had told the truth, but he was trying to omit part of it for as long as he could. Inoichi, a voice called. One of the clansmen. You might want to take a look at this. The Yamanaka heir looked up, inwardly irritated that he had been interrupted during the interrogation of a prisoner just as he'd asked a question. His reprimand died on his lips when he saw something that shouldn't exist inside someone's mind. All his clansmen were looking at what had been hidden behind the pile of boxes that had fallen down from the last use of the clan's kenjutsu. The Yamanaka had learned a lot over the years about minds. How to enter one, alone or with another, how to interpret the meaning of the mind's appearance, and how to extract information for the sake of the village. But of all the things he had personally seen or knew to exist inside a mind, a dark passageway had never been one of them. Never seen anything like this before, Koichi, the older mindwalker said, confirming that small doubt he still had. What do you think it is? Shuro asked. I have no idea, Inoichi said slowly, before turning towards Naruto. Care to explain? The younger blonde recoiled from the sudden attention of all the mindwalkers that were holding his consciousness hostage. Nothing important. You were interested in my name, right? Can we talk about that instead? He's lying, Inoichi, Koichi said. No. I'm not. Of course he's lying, Inoichi said, shifting his attention to the dark passage again. Let's check this thing. No. The PR, Naruto yelled, catching the Yamanaka's attention again. I mean, there's nothing interesting in there. You could at least try to make your excuses believable, Inoichi replied, starting to advance through the dark tunnel. Let's go now. I want to see what this is. The other four mindwalkers followed him, forcing their captive to adjust to their pace, ignoring his protests. Maybe it's some kind of manifestation of a repressed memory. Or a stored cache created using a jutsu. The youngest of the Yamanaka asked, sounding dubious. If that were the case, it would look like a container, like a chest or a safe, Inoichi clarified, looking around. This is something else, something completely different. And it was something that Inoichi couldn't really explain either. He had expected another room, maybe some kind of mental defense placed on sensitive information. Instead, now he and his clansmen were practically dragging the Naruto by force down what looked like a sewer-like maze. He could feel Shuro's and the other clansmen's nervousness. This doesn't look like a mind at all, Inoichi, Koichi said, looking around tensely. Not one I've ever been inside, at least. Maybe he has a double personality. And it appears like two minds, connected by this tunnel. The younger Yamanaka asked, pointing towards Naruto's direction. I don't. The non-Yamanaka blonde protested. No, in that case there would be a door, keeping the personalities separated, Inoichi said, throwing his own opinion in the matter. Unless the personalities are aware of each other, Inoichi-san, a clansman voiced out. Even so, I've never heard of a mind with a maze inside it. he said, looking at the corridor, especially not one resembling a flooded sewer. Maybe you just haven't heard of enough, Naruto muttered. Inoichi decided to ignore the prisoner's provocation, and for a while as the group kept walking, the passage became darker and murkier with water reaching up to their ankles. After a sudden turn, the passage opened to a gigantic room. It was barely lit, it felt humid, and there was a strange sound that resonated in the air. The Yamanaka was looking around, searching for clues, but this place didn't look like a mind. It didn't feel like a mind at all. Instead it resembled something artificial, a man-made construct. But for what reason? Inoichi-san. One of his companions whispered, barely audible. What is it, Shuro? He asked, wondering why the Mindwalker was speaking in such a low voice. It wasn't like there was anyone else to hear them. Shuro didn't answer. Instead, he kept looking towards the front of the group, with a fearful expression in his eyes. Inoichi followed his gaze, and was suddenly aware how that was the direction the noise was coming from. A colossal form was prone in the darkness, and he realized that the sound was the creature that was snoring. It was a mountain of fur and tails. Realization arrived soon, and Inoichi felt his own mind at risk of falling prey to fear. It's a bijou, he said, turning towards the prisoner, shock evident in his eyes. You're a Jinchuriki. Could we please keep this quiet? Naru, the captive Jinchuriki said, sheepishly. I don't know how to tell the Hokage about this, Databeo. Well, since I am going to be the one to tell him, you don't have to worry about. Inoichi, Koichi said, barely controlling himself. I think that it's the Kyubi no Yoko. The group fell silent, and Inoichi immediately checked how many tails were sprouting from the being, each of them bigger than its actual body. He knew that the other Mindwalkers were doing the same. There were 9. What? One of the other clansmen yelled. But that's impossible. Konoha is in possession of the Kyubi. How could? Please, don't scream, their prisoner said. You could wake him, and he seemed very irritable the last time I spoke to him. What with the hangover and everything? Hangover? Inoichi hissed. Now the whole thing had officially stopped making sense. Inoichi-san, Shuro called, his face drained of all color. There is no seal trapping the beast. No seal. Inoichi demanded, snapping his head towards the bijou's form and examining it more carefully. It was true. No seal, no bars, no gates, no chains, no restraints at all separated them from the beast. Oh shit, Shuro whispered. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Calm yourself, Shuro. Koichi ordered, whispering. Calm myself. How am I supposed to? Quiet. The older Yamanaka hissed, grasping the younger one's jaw. Please, don't yell, Naruto said, looking annoyed. If he wakes up, he'll be angry with me, and you're not in position to make demands, prison. The bickering between the Mindwalkers and their captive was cut short by a long and loud yawn. Inoichi could see a giant red eye opening lazily, gazing at the group of blondes. Naruto, a voice thundered. I told you to let me sleep. It can talk. One of the Yamanaka asked, in shock. Yes, he can. Please, calm down, he's not. Let's get out of here. Shuro yelled, trying to go for the passage they'd had arrived through. It would have been a good piece of advice, but Inoichi and the others were either too shocked or petrified from terror as the bijou slowly got up. And the jutsu, represented by the chain, was still connecting the younger Yamanaka with the prisoner. Calm down, kid, or the jutsu will collapse, Koichi said, reprimanding. Even as he said that, he started to slowly walk backwards towards the entrance. I am still weakened from the ordeal you put me through, the massive fox rumbled, getting closer. Who are these visitors? My midnight snack. Inoichi's instincts were telling him to run. Just run away, leave this, whatever this place was, go back into the Jinchuriki's mind, leave, alert the Hokage, and call it a day. But there was something in the creature's tone that made it sound like mocking. Had the Kyubi no Yoko, who apparently was able to talk, made a joke? Unfortunately, Shuro had not heard that mocking undertone at all. He panicked, losing his remaining control and destabilizing the jutsu. His chain broke, and the backslash of the technique was the last thing Inoichi felt. Oh shit! A Chunin hissed as he saw the 5 Yamanaka fall to the ground over the security camera feed, like puppets that had had their strings severed. The prisoner, however, seemed to be fine, and looking around curiously. The Chunin had never assisted in a standard Yamanaka interrogation, or in a Yamanaka special which required an entire team of mindwalkers, but he was pretty sure that it wasn't normal for the ninja performing it to pass out. Or worse. Sound the alarm. He called out to his fellow guard. The prisoner did something. Minato sighed, looking at the barely organized paperwork sprawled on his desk. He put down the cup of herbal tea he had brewed to relax his nerves. It hadn't worked. The cursed documents from this morning had been left unattended for too long, and had now multiplied in bulk because of the various reports about the attack and the damage sustained. He had discussed this with the council. How come he had to review the whole thing again? Oh, right. Because he was the Hokage. Minato really wasn't in the mood for desk work, so he decided to use his trademark paperwork trick. But what if the clones decided that they weren't in the mood either? I could just dispel them and create more until they start to work, he muttered, forming the necessary seal. Minato. Not space. A voice shrieked from his left. The Yondaime Hokage lurched up from his seat, startled. Turning around in a defensive stance, he saw Kushina perched on the open window in an obvious state of distress. Kushina, what? His red-haired fiancée jumped towards him before he could finish his question, almost clobbering him in the face with a small book she was grasping in her hands. Minatolukbuk Picturius Minia Mayanatio and OTSPACE. The Yondaime Hokage had to dodge a flurry of strikes from Kushina's book which almost broke his nose on at least 2 occasions. He had no idea what the redhead was babbling about, having barely recognized his own name in the nonsense she was screaming. Since Minato was not really eager to be bludgeoned by the woman he had proposed to just 2 days before, he decided to put an end to this, grabbing the book and stopping the woman's unwitting assault. Kushina, what's wrong? Please, tell me, he started, softly, before the door of his office crashed open. A very, very panicked Chunin had entered the room. No way this was good news. Hokage-sama. An alarm has gone off in the high-security cells. The Yamanaka team is down. Minato widened his eyes in shock. What had happened? The prisoner was practically powerless. How could he have overwhelmed 5 clan-trained mindwalkers during an interrogation? And when it was a Yamanaka special to boot? Absently, he worried about the interrogation team, but there was no time for that. Had the prisoner broken free? Understood, he said to the Chunin, before turning towards Kushina. Look, we can talk about whatever the problem is later. I need to go. As he said this, he had already unsheathed his 3-pronged kunai. Kushina latched onto him firmly. Oh no, you don't. And they both were gone in a yellow flash. In the darkness of his cell, Gaara rose, dispelling the sand eye that he had used to spy on Minato Namikaze. Had he been a less self-controlled person, he would have cursed when he had heard that the Hokage had teleported into the Priden complex because of an emergency. An emergency that, he was sure, had something to do with Naruto. Or Sasuke Uchiha. One of those two, for sure. But if it were Sasuke, he'd have a plan. If it were Naruto, it'd probably be utter chaos and he'd need help. He'd check on the blonde first. Because this time, their captors would use lethal force, and he didn't like the idea of having Naruto killed by his own father one bit. That, and the Hokage would never forgive himself, once the truth came out. He gathered all the sand he could from the small room, and pushed against the cell's entrance. The first metal door put up a valiant resistance, but it quickly crumpled under the pressure and was cast aside. The second one, however, revealed itself to be a little harder to take down, having been reinforced by seals. With enough time, he would have been able to wreck it, but the Hokage had already teleported into the cell block, who knows where. Maybe he was already in Naruto's cell. He didn't have time. Allow me, Shikaku said, letting his Bijou chakra flow through the sand. The door, the seals, and a few ANBU posted outside were blasted away like they were nothing. Thank you, Gaara communicated, flooding the area outside of the cell with his sand and trapping all the potentially hostile guards. He was sure that he had heard someone shout something like, not again, but he could have been wrong. Gaara left the cell with a long, anxious strides. He concentrated, ignoring the threats and silent stares of the guards trapped around him. He could feel the grains of sand saturated with his chakra still present in the Yondaime Hokage's clothes. Not knowing exactly where Naruto was held, that was his best lead to follow. He started to move, his sand flowing all around him, pinning anyone who tried to get in his way to the wall. As he kept running towards the Hokage's direction, a sudden memory almost made him stop in his tracks. Matsuri. What had happened to her during the attack? Was she a light? They wouldn't hurt Matsuri, they'd better not have hurt Matsuri. But Naruto needed him now, and he had to avert a potential crisis. Sighing, he created a sand clone and sent it to explore the whole level. The clone's eyes were similar to his spying technique in that he could see through them if he wished to. As the clone disappeared behind a turn, Gaara kept moving towards his destination. And are you sure you have no idea who could have drawn that seal array? Well, I didn't see anyone actually draw it. I was occupied, Shikamaru replied to his father's question. But now that you mention it. A long silent moment passed between the two Nara inside the interrogation room before Shikamaru finally straightened, eyes widening. God damn it, Naruto, Shika groaned, banging his head on the table repeatedly. Who? Shikaku asked, worried by the sudden self-harming reaction. The Yondame's son, he's the guy that probably caused this whole mess. But he's not a Fuinjutsu master, so how? Shikamaru's rhetorical question was interrupted by the sound of an alarm that resounded throughout the whole prison. Don't ask me how, the time-traveling Nara mumbled without raising his head, but I know this is his fault, too. Please wait a moment, I'll check and see what this is about, Shikaku said, getting up and walking out of the room. It wasn't like Shikamaru could go anywhere, what with the seals and the fact that he was, technically, still a prisoner. He hoped it wasn't anything too troublesome, and that with all the evidence they could present and the blood tests his father wanted to ask for, they could clear this mess up. Maybe they could find a way to go home without messing with the timeline too much. Revealing all he knew to his father had been a big risk, but since he hadn't ceased to exist, he supposed that he hadn't interfered with his own conception. They just had to avoid other problems, and keep their true identities a secret from the general population to avoid any drastic changes. As he was pondering on how to do that, the door of the cell slammed open, and his father entered at speeds approaching a full-on sprint. And to his great surprise, started to remove the restraining seals. What are you doing? He asked in shock. Your friend has somehow caused a ruckus. The Hokage is going towards his cell, personally. And worst-case scenario, one of them might die, and everything we planned would be for nothing. None of our two groups would reconcile, Shikamaru interrupted, starting to peel the simpler seals himself. Shikaku. A voice thundered from the door. What do you think you're doing? Avoiding time paradoxes. Half-yelled the older Nara as he jumped on the guard, beating him down with a chop on the neck. Shikamaru stared at the unconscious man who was now drooling all over the floor. About that, Dad, we should talk. No time. Follow me. Shikamaru could only let out a strangled yelp as he was dragged down the corridor past the passed-out guard. Hey, Inoichi guy, are you alright? Naruto asked, looking at the prone form of his interrogators from his bed. He could move only his head, though not very much because of all the restraints and seals placed on him, but at least he could see a good portion of his cell. All the Yamanaka had somehow been knocked out. Great. He was sure this would look bad from the security cameras. Actually, it looked bad even from his own position on the bed. He grimaced at his own terrible pun, blaming the stress and boredom he'd had to endure before the terrible humiliation of the bedpan. Naruto. Instead of coming up with bad jokes, see if they're still alive, Kurama snarked through the mental link of the seal. And how am I supposed to do that? Naruto mumbled, not caring if he looked like a fool speaking to himself. After all, he was the only person in the cell. The only person not unconscious or dead. Check if they're breathing, idiot. I'm going back to sleep. But I might need. Look, I woke up because those idiots disturbed me, but now I need to rest, the fox interrupted him. My chakra reserves are terribly low, I told you that. I'll be fine in a few weeks. But I need your help now. A hiss was heard in the silent room, and Kurama went silent, probably taking advantage of the distraction to drift off. The door was opening once again, but instead of the foreboding silence of the other times, he could feel voices on the other side, growing louder. Aina, I really can't look at a book right now. We're in the middle of a crisis. A male voice said. His father, he was sure it was him. The crisis could be averted if you just listened to me, Databane. No way. But, there was only one person that could have said that word. I can't, look, the door's opened, so let's check the prisoner and the team first, alright? The door finally opened completely to reveal both of his parents standing there. This time, Naruto made sure to not faint because of the shock. They were both alive, they were both real, and they were both here. And they considered him an enemy. Why did people consider him lucky, again? His father sprinted into the cell, kunai in hand, and landed beside one of the Yamanaka. Naruto couldn't see which one, though, unless he broke eye contact. His dad probably believed that he had done something, and that he could pull out some kind of trick. They're still breathing, his father muttered. Well, that was a relief. Kushina, check the seals on the prisoner. Naruto turned his attention to his mother, who was just staring at him. What was wrong with her? Kushina, the seals. The older conscious blonde said. This seemed to snap the woman from her trance, and she did as asked, coming closer to Naruto. The blonde was trying to hide his anxiety at having his mother so close, and this time not as an illusion inside the seal. Even if he knew that it would have been mistaken for something else. Naruto was not a seal master, but he could tell that she had given the seals trapping him on the bed just a passing glance. Instead, she seemed more interested in him. He was avoiding eye contact, but he could tell that she was stressed by something, even if he had no idea what it was. She was examining his face, his cheekbones, his chin, his eyes, all his other features. She was looking at him with a mixed expression of shock, curiosity, fear and recognition. What the? Without any forewarning, she made a squealing sound, glomping him. Mini Minato. Mommy is so sorry that we treated you this way. What? Two different voices chorused, one in shock, and the other in surprise. She knew. How? Ooh. Ooh. Kushina continued, ignoring the reactions to her antics. What's your name? Oh wait, I know. It's Naruto. It was written in the book with the pictures. Pictures? Kushina, what are you talking about? Minato demanded, unable to understand the redhead's actions. This. She said, shoving a small book right in Minato's face. Look at it. Look at it. The seal wasn't a teleportation one, Minato. There's no space component. It was. Alright. Just calm down, his father said, grabbing the book. Naruto noticed that it looked somehow familiar. Minato opened the book, and started to flip through the first pages, puzzled. Turning towards Kushina, the yondaime arched an eyebrow, like if asking silently for an explanation. It was in his apartment. She said, pointing towards the strapped blonde. Naruto froze as his father glared at him hatefully. And then Naruto's eyes widened in shock when Kushina smacked the older blonde lightly. Don't look at him that way. We've already treated him badly enough. Kushina, he is an enemy combatant. We didn't treat him any differently then. He is not an enemy. Look, just check out the last picture. Why? Is there a picture of me asking for your hand, too? Minato asked. You're not married, yet. I thought, Naruto said, before recoiling after having attracted the attention of both of his parents, and because his father was glaring at him again. Subtly this time. He decided to keep his mouth shut. Oh, don't worry, it'll happen soon. Kushina chirped. Kushina, stop fraternizing with the. But Naruto never knew what would have come after that, because a hiss announced that the door had been opened once again. Two figures leaped through the barely opened passage, landing inside the room. Shikamaru was standing there, in the front of the open door. Beside his father. What are you doing? The two blondes yelled in the direction of their own respective Naras. Preventing you from making a horrible mistake, Hokage-sama Shika something, Shikamaru's father said. By freeing a prisoner? Minato asked. He looked utterly furious, and Naruto was grateful that that anger wasn't aimed at him. Minato, it's not that simple, Shikaku, that was the name, said, trying to calm his leader. Nothing in this mess is as it seems, it's just a big misunderstanding. Also, freeing me was totally his idea, Shikamaru said, looking bored as always while he ignored the indignant look the older Nara shot at him. What? It was. Oh. You must be Shikaku's son from the future, am I right? You look like a mini Shikaku. Kushina said, causing everyone to blink in surprise. Wait, you know already about that? Shikaku asked numbly. Of course. Seal Master. She said, pointing at herself with her thumb smugly. And I found this. The two Nara just stared dumbstruck at the small book. Even Naruto had to admit that it was not a great explanation. Inwardly, of course. After all, she had somehow realized that he was her son and she was defending him. Would somebody explain me what's going on? Kushina, you surely don't believe that, Minato demanded. Sadly, before that somebody could explain to the poor Hokage, the door opened yet again. But this time, it wasn't the mechanism of the door that opened it. It was a flood of sand that ripped the steel door off its hinges and threw it away for a good measure. The Kazekage had arrived. And in a grand fashion. At least he had the courtesy of sending the potentially fatal object away from the other people in the room. Standing or strapped or unconscious. Behind him, the hallway that led to Naruto's cell had been completely flooded with hardened sand, probably to stop any potential traps. You! The Hokage exclaimed, recognizing him. Gaara? What are you doing? Naruto demanded. I'm saving you, the pale redhead replied in his usual monotone voice. No, you're not. You're just complicating everything. Enough of this. Minato said, reaching for his kunai pouch and lunging towards the younger Kage, who had already started to move his sand. But none of them were able to do more than take a single step. Kagemain no Jutsu, success. The two Naras, father and son, blinked at each other. They had used the trademark technique of their clan to freeze everyone on their spot at the same time. Aside from Naruto who was already immobilized. No need to beat a dead horse, after all. So cute. Shikaku, he really looks like you. Kushina squealed. This is treason, Shikaku, Minato growled darkly. You were already in trouble for freeing a prisoner, now you're even attacking fellow Konoha shinobi. There was a moment of dead silence as the look in Minato's eyes went glacial cold. As he spoke again, his voice was full of the ruthless authority his office required. You would raise a hand against your Kage. A bead of sweat dribbled down the side of Shikaku's face as his expression became slightly more nervous. I'm not attacking anyone, I just want to clear up all the misunderstandings before any real consequences. Whatever Shikaku wanted to say was lost when a section of the cell's wall exploded inward, raising a thick cloud of dust and debris. The sound of coughing filled the room as almost every shinobi's lungs spasmed in protest of the dust. Almost, because Naruto was sure that Gaara would never cough, no matter what. Too bad he couldn't see through the cloud of dust to be sure. What the heck happened? He felt a shiver run on his back as he heard a loud, feminine, growl. Oh, crap. He whispered, having recognized the sound thanks to years of experience. Naruto. A voice screamed, promising pain, nothing but pain. As the dust started to fall, he saw Sakura emerging from a wide hole in the wall. She looked very angry, no, she looked utterly furious. She was limping, one of her legs still covered by seal tags, he wasn't able to tell what kind, and he didn't care. And she was also carrying around a poor, miserable-looking Anbu in a headlock. She didn't seem to care about the glum masked meme, because she had caught sight of her prey. There you are, she said, her face murderous. Hey, it's Pinky. Kushina said, apparently oblivious to the hostage situation. I wonder who her father is. Hey Sakura-chan. How are you? How am I? She repeated, taking a step in his direction. The Anbu was forced to follow, because he cared about his neck. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama. He cried, before breaking into a pathetic sobbing fit. I'm a failure as Anbu, no, as a Shino. Shut up, you. Sakura hissed in his direction. She took another step. Do you have any idea what you've done, Naruto? Shikamaru. Shikaku called towards his son. The younger Nara nodded, and tendrils of his shadows moved towards the Pinkette zone. Naruto was so focused on the angered Kunoichi that he didn't see his mother and Gaara imitating Shika's head movement. We've got her, Shikamaru proclaimed. Good, now why don't we all calm down and let go of that Anbu, now. Somebody better start explaining what's going on, or I swear. Wait, Sakura-chan. How come you think that I have something to do with this? Naruto demanded quickly, hoping to find a way to avoid a, sadly justified, beating from her. Because only you could pull something like this. Sakura exclaimed, apparently not caring about having been captured by the Nara's jutsu. Oh, yeah, my son's gonna be awesome. Kushina whispered. Kushina, what? Oh hush, you. Mom, please, now tell me what you did. Sakura ordered, glaring at him from a few feet of distance. Had it not been for Shika's old man's intervention, Naruto would have already been clobbered. Well, it was as good chance as any to explain what had happened to his parents at least. Well, you remember the party, right? Party? What party? Minato asked, now more confused than enraged. The one to welcome your son back to Konoha, Gaara said, coming to the rescue of his fellow Kage, and failing to clear his confusion. Yes, she answered flatly. I was there. Right. Well, you see, I was drunk, after the party. Literally smashed, and, stop stalling and spit it out. I kinda created a bunch of shadow clones and drew a giant seal without even knowing what I was doing, putting symbols in at random, and pumping all the chakra I had into it. All my chakra, he confessed quickly, emphasizing the last part. Silence, utter silence, filled the room. Everyone was trying to make sense of what the young blonde had said. Shikamaru facepalmed. 3 hands imitated him. As coincidence would have it, some of them would have done the same regardless. Wait, you mean that, it's true? Minato whispered, in shock. Hush, Minato, Kushina said quietly. I want to see what happens next. You, the pink-haired medic said, slowly, you, of all people, created a time travel seal, while you were drunk. I know, it sounds crazy. I mean, I would have never attempted something like this normally. You, an Uzumaki, yes. He's got my surname. In your face, Minato. That can't even create anything more complex than an exploding tag. What? Kushina screamed, simply outraged, her previous excitement all but forgotten. Hey! I started learning seals late. Naruto protested. Managed to create something that no one had been able to do before, because it was considered impossible. While you were drunk? I don't even remember doing it. It was an accident. I was drunk. That's not an excuse. Sakura screamed at the top of her lungs. Do you have even any idea what you could have done? The consequences of our mere presence? Just the fact that you even spoke with your parents, or, Shika, is that your father? Maybe. The younger Nara replied, trying to sound as disinterested as he possibly could. I'll speak with you later, Sakura hissed in the shadow user's direction, before staring again at Naruto's more than terrified eyes. Can you even imagine what could happen, because of your idiotic drunken spacetime ninjutsu? Technically, Sakura-chan, it's Fuinjutsu, and I don't care what it technically is, Naruto. I care about the fact that all that's happened in our lives could have been erased by your smashed brain. All our fights, all our enemies, all our, she said, before catching herself up, watching for a second at the non-time travelers present in the room. All the last years of our lives, good and bad, gone, because you. I can barely hold her, Shikamaru warned. Gaara, help me. The Kazekage, suddenly free, started to move the waves of sand he had left after his rampage through the prison toward Sakura. Naruto was thankful for that. In a way, Gaara was actually saving him. Sadly, Shikamaru's control on the girl's shadow ended before the sand was able to catch her. The medic Nin moved towards Naruto, throwing the poor, sobbing Ambu at the tendrils of sand which caught him swiftly. As Sakura's punch descended towards his face, Naruto heard something that any man would fear hearing. No sex for 6 months. Shinaro. And then Naruto was out cold. Chapter 11. The terrible, throbbing pain in his head was the first thing Naruto experienced once he woke up again. Last night's party had probably been really wild if he was still suffering from a hangover. I'm never going to get drunk ever again, he moaned. It was like he had been inside a giant bell while someone rang it. And then hit him with said bell. He tried to remember the recipe for Erosenin's hangover remedy, a disgusting mixture of herbs, eggs, wasabi and more booze. He had never used it, but he had prepared it for the old pervert on more than one occasion during their training trip. It usually involved some puking on Jiraiya's part, too. Was he supposed to put the egg in before, or after the booze? And did he even have eggs since he'd just moved into a new apartment? Whatever. He had to get up, first. Naruto feebly started to roll onto his side, when he realized 2 things. He was not in his new bedroom. But even if that fact strangely felt like a déjà vu to him, it was the second thing that really surprised him. Because beside his bed, collapsed in a chair while sleeping, with red hair draped everywhere, was none other than Kushina Uzumaki. For a long, silent minute, he just remained perfectly still. Staring at her while his brain tried to reboot. Quickly. Part alcohol get drunk so nothing happened, we were attacked by dad. We were captured and Yamanakagai Sakurama. Holy shit, he whispered, as he remembered the events of, how much time had passed. But it turned out well, right? After all, he didn't seem to be a prisoner now. A simple check revealed no seals or restraints or whatsoever on his body. No guards or ANBU creeping around the room either. Maybe outside of the room, sure, but not inside. Still, he didn't feel like a prisoner. Not in a comfy bed in a nice room, at least. From what he could see, there was even a bathroom adjacent to the room. So why was he feeling pain all over his Sakura, he whimpered, remembering that part. He really hoped that Sasuke hadn't heard of that. He could not sit there moping for 6 months, though. Carefully, the young blonde rolled over again on the bed, trying to be as quiet as possible, without breaking eye contact with his mother's sleeping form. Part of him was afraid she'd disappear if he woke her up, and another part just didn't want to deal with whatever would happen once she woke up. At least not until his headache had disappeared, because he remembered that his mother was loud. Or at least she had appeared so during the chaotic chain of events and from what he had learned about her in the past years. Of course, Kurama was still out of commission, sleeping inside the seal. Without the Biju's chakra, how long would it take for the throbbing pain to subside? Wait. He could ask Sakura. No, wait, no. Sakura would probably say something like you deserve it for causing this mess. He was almost on his feet when he heard the door opening. Panicking, since he didn't know what to expect, he took one of the few viable options he had. He laid down on the bed again and tried to seem asleep. Just in time, because as soon as he stilled, someone entered in his, well, not his bedroom. This is highly irregular. We're not following normal procedure, a voice that Naruto knew well said. He just hadn't heard it since that disastrous Chunin exam. Gigi, he smiled inwardly, fighting the temptation to get up and hug his surrogate grandfather. This is not a regular situation, is it? Another voice stated. His father's. He was not sure if he wanted to hug him, after the way he had been treated. No, it's not. Still, forgive me for the intrusion, Hokage-sama, Sarutobi-sama, another voice barged in. Shikaku, Minato's voice greeted. I suppose you have. Yes, Hokage-sama. I have the results of the blood test on all the prisoners, directly from the lab. In the silence that permeated the room, Naruto heard the sound of paper pages being flipped. And then, a mixture of a sigh and a groan. I suppose that this confirms it definitively. Sarutobi's voice teased. Congratulations, Minato-kun. It's a boy. Am I still considered a traitor? Shikaku asked in a completely serious tone. Shikaku, I don't know. Go bother your own son from the future. Yes, sir. Naruto could hear the lazy salute from the Nara as his footsteps disappeared down the hall. And the smirk on the man's lips. I think I should go as well, the retired Sandaime said. I could speak with some of our guests while you attend to this personal matter. His father must have agreed in some way because Naruto heard the noise of the old, well, not really that old now, man disappear once the door was closed. Naruto remained perfectly still, not daring to move. What was he supposed to do now? He had dreamed who knows how many times for such an occasion, and it had already been botched by misunderstandings from the beginning. What? I know you're awake. I can hear your breathing, his father said, in a very strange tone. Like he was choosing his words very carefully. It's too shallow and rapid for you to be asleep. Crap. Of course he would notice. And Gigi probably noticed too. And Shikaku. Great. He had, once again, been awake for less than 10 minutes and had already managed to look like an idiot. Naruto sat up, looking in Minato's general direction and trying to break the awkwardness with a small laugh. It didn't work. Somehow he couldn't really bring himself to put any real feeling into it. Both he and his father refused to look at each other, a mix of embarrassment and uncertainty coming between them. So. Minato started, before his words died in his throat. Yeah, Naruto muttered. Both blondes went back to looking at nothing. 10 more minutes of awkward silence passed. This was leading nowhere. Come on, Naruto. This is basically your fault. He thought. Man up and start acting like the Hokage you want to be one day, Dadabayo. He wisely decided to ignore the fact that another Hokage was standing just beside him, doing the exact same thing. Otherwise they wouldn't be getting anywhere anytime soon. Naruto rallied himself. Now or never. I'm sorry. Both blondes exclaimed at the same time, even if with different tones. Naruto blinked. His father was apologizing. What are you sorry for? He asked, loudly. I'm the idiot that got drunk and sent himself and his friends back in time. How you managed to unravel time travel while drunk is beyond my comprehension, the older blonde sighed, rubbing his temples. Well, I don't know how I did it, but I did, Databeo. You sound like Kushina, Minato laughed softly. But please, don't yell like that. You could wake her. The blonde time traveler quickly checked his mother's sleeping form. Luckily, she still looked, and sounded, asleep. And I don't know how she'd react after what happened in your cell, the yondaime concluded. Sorry about that, he said sheepishly. But what would you apologize for? Almost killing you, capturing you, putting you into Konoha's highest security cell, not believing you when you first told me the truth, and having you undergo a Yamanaka Kenjutsu. Minato deadpanned, arching an eyebrow. Right, Naruto flinched. But it's okay, really. I mean, I almost killed you, too. What if Mom hadn't arrived when she did? Or your red-haired friend? Gaara, right? I don't even want to think about it. Naruto said, massaging his neck, remembering where Minato's blade had almost stabbed him. Let's change the subject. Agreed? Minato asked quickly, not looking him in the eyes. Yeah, let's. And we'll never speak of it ever again. Not really something you want to talk about at family dinner, right? Especially in the future, his father said, trying to lighten the mood. And unknowingly, failing spectacularly. If he noticed Naruto's flinch, he didn't show it. About that. Yes. Naruto was not the sharpest kunai in the pouch, but he knew some things. Letting his father know about what would happen was not a good idea. Especially if it ended up ruining everything. What if he ceased to exist? He wanted to exist. Existing was good. And not having his parents know about how difficult his life had been seemed a nice bonus too. What was he supposed to say? You know, Dad, you both died when I was half an hour old, so I don't know much about family dinners. No way he would do that. No, he would try to keep the whole thing secret, at least for now. At least he knew what kind of consequences there would be. Never mind. How long was I unconscious? Almost 2 days. Your girlfriend has a good punch. Tell me about it. Naruto muttered. Hey, what happened to those Yamanaka guys? They're fine, but in a deep coma. Their jutsu failed for some unknown reason. Do you have any idea why? Not really. One of them lost control and the whole jutsu crumbled. I didn't really do anything, Naruto said, not really lying. He just tell the whole truth. That's a shame, it could take weeks for them to get out of it on their own. Wait, their clan can't help them. They say that it's really dangerous to interfere with such a case. Even if Naruto did feel sorry for the poor guys, he rejoiced. He had some time before Kurama was revealed. But that's not something you should be worrying about now, his father concluded. If you say so. Hey, where are we? And where are my friends? After what happened in the cell block and the strong evidence regarding the truth, you and your friends were moved from the prison. Right now we're in a hotel on the outskirts of Konoha. Secured by multiple ANBU teams, of course. Of course. Are they? They're fine, don't worry. With this latest piece of evidence, and the results from Kushina, Sarutobi-san, and my own examination of the seal, I would say that you're not prisoners anymore. Even if that was just a technical detail by now. That's great. So, what happens now? Now? Minato sighed. Now we have to find a way to explain what happened to the village. Hey, you! Masked guy! Kiba yelled through the door of his room, knocking loudly. The minibar's empty. If I really have to stay here, at least get us something to drink. Kiba, it would be highly logical to remain sober while we are in custody, Shino said calmly from the bed he was sitting on. Oh, shut up, Shino. If I want a drink, I'll get my damn drink. You're just mad because of your sore pride. Why? Because your mother kicked you in the... Shino. Kiba interrupted him in outrage. From his spot on the rug, Akamaru whined at the memory. So, Dad. Both of them twitched at the word. It felt so weird, especially since Minato was only a few years older. Is there any way we could keep, well, my friends and I a secret? Oh, I've got it. We were on a secret mission, and the problem is that the entire village already knows of your arrival. You can't exactly keep an entire building hidden without some serious sealing jutsu, and that wasn't an option at the time. Naruto blinked. Why not? Who in their right mind provides a potential enemy with camouflage right after they more or less infiltrated their home? Oh, right, Naruto admitted. Well, you couldn't have known the truth back then, so it's not really your fault. The two blondes remained silent for a few minutes, trying to figure out a solution. What about a drill? You know, for evacuating the civilians? Minato just stared. Naruto squirmed uncomfortably. Hey, it could work. That sounds like a lame excuse, and there was too much collateral damage. We could say it was a realistic battle scenario. Half of the police force is in the hospital, Minato deadpanned. A few jonin went overboard. And they were reprimanded for it, of course. And more than that, who authorized the exercise? People saw the two of us fighting. And how do we even explain where you came from? I was on a mission for a few years. And the records were lost. And you thought that I was an enemy? Could work for one person. What about your other friends? They were on a mission, too. The younger blonde offered, not really convinced by his own words. Naruto, there are 19 of you. And a dog. Even if we claimed that it was some kind of secret undercover mission, it would be highly impractical to send so many shinobi. Well, you could just say that we were doing different missions, and pass a decree that says so. This is getting us nowhere, Minato sighed. Hey, I'm trying to help, here. Naruto did what? Ino asked again, still in shock. The five of them, Hinata, Sakura, Ino, Tenten and Karen had just been moved in the same room of the hotel. The room was a little overcrowded and they had half joked, saying that they could consider it a slumber party. The ANBU outside had promised them to find some extra pillows for a proper pillow fight. Of course, the girls started to talk about serious things almost immediately, so obviously the first thing they did was talk about what had happened. You heard me right, we're in the past because of him, Sakura growled. Before any of us have even been born. There was a long, long silence as all the girls in the room realized the implications. So, the guy who was hitting on me that looked like my dad. Ino slowly said, her expression twisting in utter revulsion. I think I'm going to throw up. Ino-san, don't feel bad. Hinata said. I'm sure Inoichi-san didn't realize you were his daughter. That doesn't make it better. The blonde mindwalker vented. Hinata didn't know how to reply to that, because she was dealing with her own inner turmoil over her attacker's identity. Please, tell me you've clobbered him, Karen sighed, massaging her temples. Does that idiot realize what he may have caused? To be fair, from what Sakura-san says, it was an accident, the Hyuga heiress quietly pointed out. He really did it, this time, Tenten sighed, still sad after realizing that all her dear ones were in the future, and not only her people. Her entire weapons collection was gone. Oh, I've done more than clobber him, Sakura grinned evilly. What do you mean? Hinata blinked. Let's just say that the next several months will be the longest of his life. Without any warning, Naruto sneezed abruptly. Bless you, Minato wished by reflex, while his mind tried to formulate a plan. Thanks, look, we could. A snorting noise interrupted the younger blonde, and both shinobi turned towards Kushina's form. It seemed that the redhead had changed her position on the chair slightly, and she was now making more of a ruckus than a sawmill while sleeping in a strange stance. As Minato smiled at the sight, Naruto realized that that was another thing he had gotten from his mother. You know, his father's voice said, while looking fondly at the snoring Kushina, there are so many things I would like to ask you. If only we had more time. Like what? Well, I think that anyone in my position would be curious. No, wait. I'm sure that just about anyone in my same position would be curious. No matter how much Shikaku tries to deny it. Sorry, Dad. I don't get it, Naruto lied. He was actually very worried about his father's curiosity. Well, you're from the future. Look, Dad, I'm not sure if it's a good idea. Naruto, how old are you now? Minato asked in a way that reminded Naruto of his first encounter with his father. I'm almost 19, he said without thinking. Surely he could tell him that, right? 19. Minato exclaimed, surprised. You're barely 5 years younger than me. Time traveler, remember? Yes, I know that. But still, it's quite a lot to take in. Naruto decided to remain silent, to avoid putting his foot in his own mouth. Don't take that the wrong way. His father quickly added, confusing Naruto's expression for who knows what. I'm actually happy to meet you this soon, I was just, surprised. Yeah. I get it. So, can we talk about, do you have any siblings? Minato asked in a suddenly excited tone. Naruto could actually see his eyes shine. What the heck? No. I'm an only child. What? Minato blinked. The shine was gone. Why? Because one of your students caused the death of you, Mom and countless others. Oh, and he pretty much single-handedly started the Fourth Shinobi World War, Naruto thought. By the way, that student is Obito. No. He couldn't tell him that. What could he say? Not knowing how to reply, he did what he always did during a fight. He charged in head first without thinking. I don't know your guy's reasoning. I never asked. Whoa, calm down. Minato said, gesturing placatingly to him. If you're always like this, I can guess you were quite a handful as a child. Naruto felt so dirty inside. He didn't like lying to his father, even if it was for a good cause. He just hoped that it would not come back to bite him in the ass. For some reason, Gaara had obtained a suite. It was not a suite like most people would imagine, with fancy furnishings and luxuries. After all, it was a cheap hotel. The suite was little more than a glorified apartment with 2 bedrooms, which was good for the needs of his siblings and Matsuri. He didn't sleep much, not even now after all the years of Shikaku influencing his mind had long passed. But having the option of a bed was somewhat nice. If that passed, you said, Matsuri stated more than asked, breaking the silence that had fallen over the room. Yes. As I've already told you, Gaara said calmly. And Naruto is responsible? His former student and current girlfriend asked. Yes, I was present when he admitted it. I'm going to. Shut up, Kankuro, Temari said. What's wrong with you, sis? He ruined us. Mom is still alive, the blonde woman said with a sad tone. Realization quickly replaced incredulity, but before any of the Suna shinobi could say anything, they all heard the door opening. Good day. I hope I'm not intruding, but I wish to speak with you, an aging man that was standing at the door said. Behind him, the occupants of the room could see a small number of ANBU. That seemed to be quite afraid of Gaara, which was understandable. Sandaime Hokage-sama, Gaara greeted in his monotone voice. Temari and Kankuro instead just widened their eyes, seeing a man that they knew to be dead. Matsuri, however, was just confused since she had never met the short man. Please, I'm not the Hokage anymore. But there is an urgent matter that I would like you to help clear up. We will help as we are able to, Gaara said, while the other 3 exchanged puzzled looks. What could the old monkey want from us? Shikaku growled. Quiet, Gaara mentally reprimanded. As you may know, the Sandaime, retired or not, said while gesturing towards Gaara, we have come to understand how you arrived here, even if it was a regrettable accident. Good. Can we leave now? Kankuro asked, just to be shut down by a slap to the back of his head from Temari. Of course, to be perfectly sure, we had to do some tests to check your story, the aged shinobi continued, while preparing his pipe. We have obtained positive blood tests for most of your companions. Besides 3 other individuals, you have no match at all in our archives. Care to explain why? We are from Suna, and I am the Godame Kazekage. Ah, the old man said, freezing in the motion of lighting his pipe and frowning a little. That complicates things. Look, Dad. We're beating around the bush, and we don't have much time, right? You're right, Minato sighed. We should probably focus on the task at hand instead of, well, talking about the future, which for you, is the past, you know what I mean. Inwardly, Naruto cheered. Mission accomplished. Most of your friends come from a clan, right? Yeah, but why do you ask? Naruto blinked, inwardly worrying that more questions were coming. If we want to keep the truth a secret from the villagers and the general public, which we must to avoid widespread panic, Minato continued, we are going to need the support of Konoha's clans. Dad, they're not all from a clan. We'll think something for them, but for a good cover story, we need accomplices. Accomplices? Isn't that word a little too extreme? If you really want, you could call them secret keepers. Anyway, by creating a solid cover with the help of the clans, no one should start asking questions about you and your companions. Then, we can focus on finding a way to send you home. Home? The boy asked in confusion. Yes, you know, the future. After all, you came here by accident, so I suppose we could at least study the seal and find a way to fix it. Is it really that urgent? The younger blonde asked. The consequences of time travel have never been recorded because it was decided that it was impossible, so, maybe someone traveled through time before, and we just don't know it, Naruto mused. That is a possibility. After all, you are here, and that proves that it's possible. Still, the longer you stay here and interact with people, the more things will change. We don't know what could happen to the timeline. Naruto had decided to not say anything, but he actually had to bite his own tongue. Still, the idea that his own father wanted to send him back immediately was leaving a sour taste in his mouth. But that could have just been his teeth drawing blood. Hey, don't worry. Minato tried to reassure him, seeing his somewhat disappointed expression. We'll see each other in the future, right? Yeah, right. We'll have a good laugh over this. Naruto mumbled nervously. Why was it so difficult to lie to his father? Naruto sent us back before our own births. Shika, even if you say that. Chuji said, hesitantly. We fought our own parents, Cho. And I met the Yondaime Hokage. And a crazy woman with red hair, too, the Nara explained. Besides that, Naruto admitted it. We're in the past. That's so unyouthful, Lee groaned, shifting the ice bag on his head. He was suffering from a terrible migraine, an after effect of all the genjutsu that had been simultaneously unleashed upon him. So, what's the plan? Chuji asked, looking at his friend and teammate. We wait. I'm sure we'll have a meeting to discuss this with the others, Shikamaru replied. The silence that followed was interrupted by a groan of realization from Lee. Then the shinobi I fought against, the green-clad young man mumbled. Those were probably our sensei, from your description, Shikamaru confirmed, before returning his attention to the shogi board in front of him. That's strangely youthful, Lee decided, putting on a strained smile. Meanwhile, Sai was sitting quietly in a corner of the room. He hadn't participated much in the conversation, preferring to sketch in his art book instead. Even though they hadn't been completely released yet, and were still considered a potentially serious threat to the village, they had been given back most of their possessions. No weapons, of course. But he couldn't really concentrate on his work. Something was bugging him, something he was having trouble figuring out for some reason. Maybe it was because he was still trying to wrap his head around the fact that they had actually time-traveled because Naruto had gotten a hold of his ink, and his eyes widened, as it finally hit him. They were in the past. Danzo was still alive. Sai's pencil snapped in his clenched fist. Here's what we are going to do. I will have a private meeting with the clan heads, and I'll explain to them what has happened, Minato said. Meanwhile, you'll have to explain the situation to your companions. Aren't we prisoners? Naruto asked, confused. Your prison is a hotel now. I'll have them escorted in the lounge. Maybe it would be better if I spoke to them one at a time. The time traveler asked nervously. Why would you do that? We don't have much time, I've stalled the whole village for 2 days, it's necessary to get this over with quickly. Naruto decided not to tell his father that he was afraid that his friends would gang up on him. And they would have been right to. Alright. Then what? Then we'll have a meeting. Your companions, the clan heads, me, you, Hiruzen. Oh, Gigi will be there, too. Gigi. Yes, he will be there, too. What about Erosenin? Who? Jiraiya. That's my nickname for him. Minato's eyes slowly widened as sweat started to form on his forehead. I'm bored. Suigetsu exclaimed. Endure it. Sasuke told us to wait, so we wait, Jugo said simply from his spot against the wall. The orange-haired teen had been in the same position for hours, barely moving. He had not even so much as shifted his glance to look at Suigetsu while talking to him, and that grated on the former mist shinobi. But it's been 2 days already. We haven't left the room at all, it's worse than a cell. In a cell, at least you know that you're in prison. And I miss my sword. Jugo turned and silenced his partner with a long, blank stare. We wait. Suigetsu made a wordless, frustrated noise and let himself fall onto the bed. You could at least say something, Sasuke, the water user said from. I feel like I'm the only person in the room with you two being so silent. Shut up, Suigetsu. Go to sleep, the Uchiha said, even if he too seemed bored out of his mind, behind his stoic exterior. Right, like I could sleep after seeing Orochimaru again, when he and that old guy accepted our surrender. How come you haven't told us what you think about that? Orochimaru will not be an issue. If necessary, I will take care of him, Sasuke replied coldly. Now go to sleep. Your whining annoys me. Ignoring Suigetsu's grumbling, Sasuke couldn't help but think that this, somehow, had to be Naruto's fault. Because by some sick twist of fate, whenever something strange happened and the blonde was around, he was either responsible or somehow involved. You sent him with who to track down Tsunade Ba-chan? Naruto yelled. It seemed like a good idea, at the time. Minato protested. But why would you send Snake Face to hunt her down? Why not? Minato said, his own voice rising. He was her teammate just like Jiraiya. They are the best ones to find her. Naruto hoped that Minato hadn't noticed his hidden hostility towards the snake Sannin. That was another can of worms he would have to deal with, he was sure of it. But she's not a traitor. He protested. We didn't know this 2 days ago, Naruto. I literally received the final proof of your origins 10 minutes ago. Look, Dad, you have to stop them. Tell them what happened. I will, Naruto. Minato, coffee a voice grogged from a corner of the room. Both blondes froze, turning towards the source of the voice. Kushina Uzumaki had been awakened by Naruto's yelling, and was now trying to compose herself in the chair she had been sprawled across. Sorry, Kushi-chan, Minato said, softly. Jiraiya-sensei said something about not giving you coffee, ever. And he looked dead serious about it. I had a strange dream, Minato, she murmured while rubbing the sleep out of her eyes. There was a sun from the future and a pink-haired banshee that chopped off her own arm, and Sakura-chan did what? Naruto exclaimed incredulously, forgetting his nervousness at having both of his parents, alive and well, beside him. In a corner of his mind, he made a mental note to speak with Sakura about her arm. Realizing that it was not her future husband that had replied, Kushina raised her head and saw them both. Minato shifted his gaze from mother to son, with a curious expression. Naruto didn't dare move. Kushina blinked. Then her eyes lit up with recognition. Hey, Mom, Naruto greeted, with an uncertain smile. As soon he finished that word, Naruto found himself tackled off his feet in a pincer-like hug. Yup, she was a fine kunoichi. He had barely seen her move. It was real. You're real. She whispered. Yes, I am, Naruto smiled. But you're crushing my lungs. How old are you? Kushina asked, backing up to give him some breathing room and placing her hands on his shoulders. How many siblings do you have? Not this again, Naruto moaned. Her eyes were even shinier than Minato's when he had asked the same question. Well, since you're both busy, his father said, trying to slip out the door, I have to go. Minato, don't you dare leave. We are having a family moment here. Kushina called out. No, no. He has to go, now. Naruto protested. Why's that? Kushina asked, pouting. Don't you want to get to know our grown-up son? You've adapted quickly to the whole motherhood thing. Minato muttered. Dad, just go. Right. I'll be right back, the yondaime reassured them as he finally reached the door. And send the fastest toad you can summon. They can teleport straight to him, Naruto. They're all fast. Minato called back as he left the hotel room, closing the door behind him. What was all that about? Kushina blinked in confusion. Dad has to send a message with a summon, that's all. Toad summon. Kushina said with a puzzled expression, before she finally remembered about the last few days. Jiraiya. He's hunting down Tsunade for treason, yes. Dad has to let him know she's not actually a traitor. That's good, she nodded. Now answer my questions. Naruto groaned. He was back at square one. I'm almost 19 and I'm an only child because you thought I was a handful. What? But me and Minato always talked about having a large family. I was a big handful. He asked, nervously. Kushina didn't seem completely convinced, and she was looking at him straight in the eyes with an almost inquisitorial look. Please believe my lie. Please believe my lie. Oh, all right. I suppose we'll have to change things, then. Changing things? Naruto whispered. It was happening. He had screwed up. He would cease to exist. Don't worry about it. Kushina chirped, waving her hand dismissively. Tell me about your girlfriend, instead. I've met her, but we didn't talk much. What do you mean, you met her? Naruto asked in confusion, before starting to sputter incoherently. Oh no, you mean in the cell, right? Look, I can explain. Nah, we fought when you guys arrived. She has a mean punch, the red-haired woman said, massaging her arm. Yeah. I know, the blonde said. He was still feeling the pain from that last one. So, you use protection, right? MOM. Because I want to have grandbabies one day, but you're both a few years too young for that. Naruto wasn't listening anymore. He was asking himself why he didn't know the Hiration. Or a suicide technique. Minato closed the door of his office with a heavy sigh. He had to admit it, he had quite enjoyed speaking with Naruto. Sure, it had not been easy accepting the idea that something impossible like time travel had happened, but he liked the boy. He seemed like a good person, and he could see both himself and Kushina whenever he looked at the time traveler. Maybe a little too much Kushina, but he would never say that to his fiancée. Still, his son was hiding something. Throughout their whole dialogue, Naruto had seemed on the defensive, avoiding questions or taking too much time to answer them. He would have dismissed this as something caused by nervousness and embarrassment much like his own. After all, they had a rocky start, at least here in the past, present. This was the present. He would, had he not seen the book of photos Kushina had found. Minato opened one of the desk drawers and took out the photo album that had made her realize that the intruders were actually from the future. Flipping open to the cover, his eyes fell on the note. Naruto, I hope you like this. I tried to put all the old photos I could find here. They would be proud of you. Kushina may have been too influenced by the caffeine and the sugar to notice, but he was not. They would be proud of you. The phrasing of those 6 words gave him an ominous feeling, and he couldn't stop himself from frowning. What had happened in the future? Or, what would happen? Time travel was such a pain. He would have to find out the truth, for his family's sake. It seemed like Kushina was not the only one that had adapted to the idea of having a son, after all. Putting the album on the desk, he started searching for a new scroll, without too much haste. After all, Jiraiya-sensei and Orochimaru had left the village 2.5 days ago. There was no way they had already found Tsunade, right? Not again. A blonde woman yelled in frustration. The slot machine in front of her was mocking them, displaying a losing combination on its 3 wheels, and now the beautiful blonde was reduced to just 1 coin, laying alone at the bottom of her paper cup. The woman growled loudly, but nobody in the casino seemed to pay any attention to the scene. It was an incredibly common sight, just another player that had blown away all their money. Well, nobody but a brunette teen. Please, Tsunade Shosho, let's go back to the inn. The girl pleaded, emphasizing her request with a gesture of her hands. We have no money left, please, let's just take our stuff and find another place. Tsunade considered this. Truly. After all, she had wasted a lot of time in this town, almost literally burning all her savings in booze and various forms of gambling. So why keep going? Hadn't she had enough for the day? Not that she liked to get drunk or lose money. But it served her purpose. To forget about those 2 who had died to protect that village that her sensei seemed to love so much. 1 more coin wouldn't hurt, right? Having made her decision, the slug Sanmin reached for the lonely coin, and swiftly placed it inside the coin slot, ignoring her apprentice's moan. Grinning in anticipation, the busty blonde grabbed the lever and quickly pulled it. Only to freeze in shock when the machine's lights almost blinded her in a show of colors, a cacophony of loud sounds and jingles as accompaniment. It took her a few seconds to realize that the gambling device was almost throwing up money at her. Tsunade Shosho, this is incredible. It's all that we lost, and more, dozens times more. Shizune exclaimed in a joyful tone as she knelt and started to collect the coins. But unlike her apprentice, Tsunade could not enjoy the win. Because she never won. She sucked at gambling in all its forms, even in games of chance like a slot machine. And all the times that she had won. We're leaving, she said, standing up from her stool. Pack, now. What? The girl asked, surprised. But Shirsho, now, Shizun. I told you I could find her in less than 3 days, Orochimaru said smugly. Fine, you won that stupid bet. Happy? Jiraiya said, grimly. Snakes are better trackers than toads, the snake Sannin proclaimed, giving a small mouse as a prize to one of his little vipers, who hissed gratefully for the treat before swallowing it whole. It had actually been pure chance, but he would never admit it. One of his minor summons had seen the slug princess walking around a small town in the heart of the land of fire, and had reported it immediately. Jiraiya just scoffed, and continued to observe their mark from their vantage point. Tsunade Senju was walking in the market square, followed closely by her apprentice, and from the looks of it, she had all the intentions of leaving town in a hurry. For now, the two of them hadn't seemed to have noticed their presence, but they would for sure if the pair of Sannin came any closer. We'll wait until they're out of the city. I don't want to involve civilians, the Toad Sage said to his old friend without looking him in the eyes. Orochimaru nodded, dismissing the small snake that disappeared in a little burst of smoke. Jiraiya, the pale shinobi said, are you focused on the mission? How dare you? The sage of Mount Myaboku hissed, snapping his head towards his former teammate. You're involved, Jiraiya. Don't tell me that you're having second thoughts about this, Orochimaru said, looking the other man right in the eyes. And you're not? Jiraiya asked after several seconds of hesitant silence. She was our teammate. That's just the excuse you're using because your feelings for her cloud your judgment, Orochimaru explained. If she has turned traitor, there will be no mercy for her. We have no solid proof that she really is a traitor, only that she's somehow involved, Jiraiya retorted, but he didn't sound too convinced of his own words. That's why we were sent here by your dear student, right? Orochimaru said mockingly. To take her back for questioning. Yeah, that's why we are here, Jiraiya nodded gravely, as he started to walk away. Come on. It's time for a reunion of old friends. That's it for part 4. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.